Welcome back to yet another Rare Switch Games video.
So I do apologize for keeping you guys waiting for a long time on this series. This has just been a really hectic year, but anyway, I'm so glad to be giving you another 10 rare Nintendo Switch games that you might have in your collection. I'm just gonna let you know that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, nah. Over and done with it. No more stupid gags in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. You know why? Well, it's just getting really old now. To me, what's actually more rare than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is Mario Kart World.
Okay then guys, so the first game I want to talk about is The Caligula Effect 2. Now this game is actually a sequel to the original game, The Caligula Effect Overdose, which is also available on the Nintendo Switch and also a game I've previously covered for rare Nintendo Switch games. I've always associated the Caligula Effect games to be similar to the Persona games. It's kind of like a poor man's Persona. I know some people online get upset by that idea, but I see a lot of similarities with things like the social links, dungeons, and the whole thing of being in a high school setting. This game was also published by NIS America, and they've known to have hit and miss type of games and launches with their games, but surprisingly, the Caligula Effect 2 is actually being pretty well received, so take that as you will. Now the current going price for the Caligula Effect 2 is about $50 USD, and over here in Australia it's going for about $80 AUD. Now this is some pretty standard pricing, and look, I've really paid attention to a lot of feedback that you guys have mentioned in past videos about where I got my pricing from, and look, I'm just going to tell you, I am currently now looking at pricecharting.com for reference, and yes, of course, there are a lot of eBay listings with these base prices. So there are still valuable games on this list, and I'm just going to be talking about games I personally think are still rare, even if they are affordable. So without any other further ado, let us go to the next game on this list. So coming up at number 2 is Death End Request. Now this one might sound familiar because I have talked about the sequel in a previous Rare Switch Games video, but this game in particular is the very first game in the series of Death End Request. Now this RPG is very interesting. It's sort of like a multi-genre RPG, as not only of course is this a JRPG, but also yes, it's got the visual novel elements that you find in a lot of RPGs in general. But the other interesting thing is that with the battle mechanics, you can also tap into both first-person shooter combat and also fighting game abilities. It's quite wild when you think about it, and very interesting and unique for a JRPG. This game also has different endings. There is no one set ending, which also includes bad endings. And in these bad endings, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil things, but it does depict some gory content and also graphic scenes. So if you are a little bit queasy in the stomach, you might want to stay away from this game. So now the current going price for Death End Request is about $50 USD, and here in Australia it goes for about $90 AUD. Still not too bad in pricing and quite affordable when you think about it, but like with a lot of these anime and JRPG type of games, I highly recommend you get them while they are still somewhat affordable, because one day, I'm sure once they're out of print, those prices will definitely go up. So coming in at number 3 on this list is Final Fantasy IX. Now, what can I say about Final Fantasy IX? Or should I just say Final Fantasy in general? So if you've been following the channel for a while, I've got this running gag that I've never played a Final Fantasy game. And while, yeah, that is quite technically true, I actually have not played a Final Fantasy game. My good friend John Chicken Fillets here on YouTube always pays me out that I've never played Final Fantasy. And well, yeah, there is a story behind that, and one day I would like to share that story in a very, very special video. But please, until that time comes, just whatever. If you want to keep making fun of me, sure, go ahead. I don't care. It's quite hilarious, actually.
Come on, UpperNimbus. Just play Final Fantasy VII.
But look, Final Fantasy IX, it's one of those classic JRPGs of all time, being regarded as one of the best Final Fantasy games in general. There's been a lot of rumors and murmurings in the industry about a Final Fantasy IX remake that still has not been announced for whatever reason. Where is Final Fantasy IX remake? I don't know, but in the meantime, let's look at some of these prices, yeah? So the current going price for Final Fantasy IX on Nintendo Switch is about $50 USD, and here in Australia it is going for about $90 AUD. Now we don't actually have a physical copy here in Australia, and I'm not too sure if America does as well, but I think an NTSC version was announced for the States a little while ago, so good for you guys, but nope, still no physical copy here, so I had to import my own. And of course, yes, if I do own Final Fantasy, why have I not played the games? Well, just like any other game in the backlog, there's just so much to trudge through. So one day the time will come, but that day is not right now. So the fourth game on this list is Witch Spring R. Now this game is a full remake of the original found on mobile devices. I'm not a big fan of mobile games myself, but having this available on the Nintendo Switch is a wonderful, wonderful blessing. Like any other JRPG, this is a story-driven game, and it blends elements of simulation, item collecting, and also general adventuring. You play as the role of Pieberry, the protagonist of this game. She is a young witch running from a witch hunt as she embarks on her most grandiose adventure ever. I really do like the cute appeal and aesthetic of this game. This is a very underrated JRPG series, as I also own the game Witch Spring 3 Refine. So of course, naturally, I'm also looking forward to this game. So the current going prices for Witch Spring R is about $60 USD, and here for Australia it's about $90 AUD. So about 4 games in, the prices are still quite fair, but do pay attention because these prices, especially for Australia, are going to be gradually going up in price. So make sure you keep track of the games that you want to add to your list and to your Nintendo Switch collection, and also budget accordingly because, well, unfortunately, like myself and a lot of other people, I don't have a lot of money, so it's taken quite some time to actually gather these games for myself. So the fifth game on this list is Mega Dimension Neptunia 7. Now this game is a sequel to Hyperdimension Neptunia Victory, I think also known as Neptunia 5, which is interesting because it makes me wonder where number 6 ended up, so who knows. Now with the Neptunia games, they are a huge and massive JRPG series and also a bit of a multimedia franchise, as I know that there is an anime series for the Neptunia franchise. And the really interesting thing about this series of games is, well, everybody is a girl. I mean, there could be a couple of guys, but from what I've seen, it's just waifus galore, man. There's just cute anime girls everywhere. And like most other Neptunia games, Mega Dimension Neptunia 7 revolves around and parodies the real-life video gaming industry and other forms of Japanese pop culture. So the current going price for Mega Dimension Neptunia 7 is $50 USD, and here in Australia, $100 AUD. So to my American friends, you guys are quite lucky and still paying a very, very basic rate of $50 to $60 USD, but you can see that the pricing for Australia is getting up there quite close to those Nintendo Switch 2 prices. And in regards to Nintendo Switch 2 content, why have I not covered much Nintendo Switch 2 stuff on the channel? Well, to be honest, there's not really a lot to talk about. And although I do like the Nintendo Switch 2, well, most games are game keycards, man, and I don't really see any current value to them. But maybe one day I will dive into rare Nintendo Switch 2 games. But honestly, let me know, just chuck a comment down below if you want me to cover certain Nintendo Switch 2 content. By all means, you're more than welcome to make suggestions in the comments. I read everybody's comments, I reply to everybody. I'm always watching and listening, so don't be afraid to reach out. Now the sixth game I've chosen is East 9 Monstrum Nox. Now unfortunately, this is yet another game that I have not played on the Nintendo Switch. However, I do love the Ys games, especially Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana, which I've also covered in a previous Nintendo Switch Rare Games video, so be sure to check that out if you get the chance. I know, right? Shameless plug. So honestly, I don't know too much about Ys 9 itself, but look, I do highly recommend the Ys games in general. They're always high top tier quality games. This is honestly, in my opinion, one of the best JRPG series you could possibly play. And there is also Ys 10 Nordics, which came out not too long ago, so that is also yet another banger of a JRPG you need to check out. And yes, I've actually played that one, so that's a good little relief to know for myself. So now the current going price for Ys 9 Monstrum Nox is about $60 USD, and here in Australia it's going for a flat $100 AUD. Now of course, if you find this game secondhand in retail, such as your EB Games or otherwise, then you might be getting it for about $85 or $90 AUD. But the secondhand market does suggest this game is more closer to the price of $100. Australian dollars, that is, of course. Now, it is still a very rare game to find down under, at least. I'm not too sure about the rarity situation in the US or other countries across the world, but I do have a very hard time finding East games in general on store shelves. Both obviously brand new, but also even secondhand. Now the 7th entry is Trails into Reverie. This game is a part of the Legend of Heroes series, which also by the same developer that does the East series, Nihon Falcom. Now, I know a lot of people seem to prefer the Trails games over the East games. I'm quite the opposite. I much prefer the East games myself. I like that big, wondrous open adventure. Whereas with the Trails games, even though I've never actually played Trails myself, it is a very overwhelming franchise to get into, and I'm not going to point fingers or throw knives or daggers, but it does have a very, very protective fandom. But that's okay, because look, every video game franchise has their fan base. But yes, one day, of course, I am looking forward to getting into Trails, and not because anyone's told me to, but I would personally like to get into Trails in the Sky First Chapter myself, the remake that it is. To me, that game looks very vibrant and inviting in general. However, putting that all aside, we should probably look at some of the pricings for this game. So the current going price for Trails into Reverie is about $70 USD, and here in Australia, it's going for about $110 AUD. Now, I'm not too surprised that the pricing for a Trails game is a little bit on the higher end than most other RPGs and whatnot. That's just because even though there are a lot of games in the Trails series, they don't have the biggest print runs in general compared to other bigger RPG franchises. So this is kind of why I've collected and picked up the Trails games. I know I haven't played them yet because there's just a lot to this franchise and you've really got to pay attention to the story and dialogue, but I do like that idea. I do like that whole interconnected narrative with the franchise. I think that's amazing, and I think that's one of the reasons I'll probably fall in love with the Trails games. But until that time comes, I'll just keep collecting them as they release. So the 8th game on this list is Atelier Marie Remake. I feel like I'm just carrying over themes from one game to the next, so that's just quite coincidental, but the thing about the Atelier games is it does share similarities to the Trails games, more so in the sense that this is yet another huge juggernaut JRPG franchise. There's a crap ton of games in Trails, and there's also a crap ton of games in the Atelier series. Now, I've only really played the Atelier Ryza games myself, but it does also feel good to have Atelier Marie in my collection as well. The Atelier games are very laid back compared to a lot of other RPG stories, and the stories within Atelier aren't super crazy or out there like your Xenoblades or your Final Fantasies. So if you are looking for a more laid back adventure and cruisy style of RPG, honestly guys, like if that is your jam, you've got to get into Atelier. It is so worth it just for the coziness alone. Plus also, I mean, how can you say no to the waifus, am I right? So the current going price for Atelier Marie Remake is about $90 USD, and here in Australia, we're paying about $120 AUD. So once again, you can see the gradual price increase. Honestly, no surprise there. I like to leave the most expensive games until last, but regardless of all that, if you believe this is a game that is for you, putting the price aside, definitely pick this one up because I think it'll be worth the investment whether you want to keep this game or resell it down the line. There will be value to Atelier Marie Remake no matter what you do. Now the second last game coming at number 9 is Senran Kagura Reflections. So all I'm going to say is that this is a very acquired taste of game. You have to be a person of culture to be somewhat interested in this because, well, the whole premise of Senran Kagura Reflections was kind of taking advantage of the HD rumble within the first couple of years of the Nintendo Switch. It was one of those early bird games, kind of almost like a tech demo when you think about it, but using the Senran Kagura IP. And what do you actually do with the HD rumble feature? Well, the best way to put it is you massage females and you make them feel good and you do everything in your power to be a good person. Is that the best way to put that into context? Anyway, you may or may not see some imagery on screen that shows you what this game is all about. Why do I have it in my collection? Well, I mean, you know, for scientific purposes, obviously. So the current going price for this game is about $80 USD, and here in Australia, it is $150 AUD. So that is quite a large price gap between America and Australia. I'm not too sure what the actual conversion rate is there. I feel like the Australian copy should be more closer, about 120 or 130. So that's an extra $20-30 AUD that's expected coming out of our wallets. Geez, that's really unfair when you think about it. If you believe that this is your type of game, seriously, like what you like, get what you want. Yeah, if anyone's going to judge you, well, honestly, that's their loss. Okay then, guys, so the last game on this list is Omega Labyrinth Live. Now with this game in particular, this is a dungeon crawling roguelike where you buff up your character's bust after every enemy you defeat. So that's pretty self-explanatory. So as you can tell, this is, yes, a very lewd and suggestive type of RPG with tons of anime ecchi themes as well. And yes, I will admit, even though I'm still not the biggest fan of dungeon crawlers, I could not pass up this opportunity because, well, to be fair, I just like rare video games. So yeah, that is totally the reason why I got this. Now there is a very laid back and casual side to this game, as you can enjoy your daily life in the academy full of fair, beautiful maidens. You can perform activities like planting seeds in the garden and raising flowers, or you can also change up the decor such as trees, lights, benches, and you can even change the scenery of the academy to your heart's content. Now the current going prices for Omega Labyrinth Life is $110 USD, and over here in Australia, $200 AUD. Yes, this is the most expensive game on the list, and for many good reasons. But yes, this game is quite a lot of money, and if you're willing to fork out anywhere between $100 to $200, either in American or Australian dollars, then by all means, if you do have that money and you want this game, do yourself a favor, go out and get it, order it, ship it in, whatever you have to do, and add this beauty to your Nintendo Switch collection.
So thank you so much for watching today's episode of another 10 rare Nintendo Switch games. I think this is the 9th volume that I've finally released on the channel, and yes, of course, there will at least be a 10th one. So if you do like this content, definitely let me know, put your thoughts in the comments, and also let me know what rare Nintendo Switch games are in your collection, or what games you want me to cover in the future with this series. And look, if you do want to support the channel, the best thing you can possibly do is like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, but also hype that video as well, because it really gives small channels like my own that exposure. So that pretty much wraps up everything. And as always, guys, I will see you in the next video. UpperNimbus is signing off.